Forget everything you thought you knew about martial arts history. Joe Louis did not just fight, he engineered a revolution that ripped apart the very foundations of traditional karate. This is the definitive account of the epic showdowns and radical shifts that birthed modern full-contact combat. Martial arts, as we know them today, would be completely different if one man hadn't decided that pulling punches was a lie. That man was Joe Louis. He looked at the world of traditional karate, perfectly executed forms, disciplined, non-contact sparring, and he called bullshit. It was a bold move, a crazy move. He stood in front of a centuries-old institution and asked, "This is beautiful, but does it work?" The question sent shockwaves through every dojo on the planet. Louis wasn't just some loudmouth, he was one of them. To really get what Joe Louis did, you have to understand what he was up against. Traditional karate, coming out of Okinawa, Japan, was built on a foundation of discipline, respect, kata. Kata are these intricate, choreographed patterns of movement, like a solo dance of death. You practice them over and over, thousands of times, to ingrain the techniques into your muscle memory. The most common form was point sparring. The goal wasn't to knock your opponent out, it was to score a point. You had to demonstrate a clean, powerful strike, but pull it back just before impact. You spend years honing a reverse punch that can supposedly shatter a man's ribs, but the only way you can prove it is by stopping it an inch from the target. It created a culture where the question of what if was always hanging in the air. This non-contact approach was designed to prevent injuries and preserve the integrity of the techniques. But underneath the honor, the system was built on an unproven hypothesis, and some fighters were beginning to wonder if it would hold up in a real fight. By the 1960s, cracks were starting to appear in that perfect facade of traditional karate. Guys were getting really good at the sport of point sparring, but they were starting to feel like they were just getting good at a game. It led to the rise of underground, no-rules matches, back rooms, empty warehouses, private dojos after hours. Guys from different styles would meet up, karate, kung fu, boxing, to see whose stuff really worked. It was raw and brutal. No points, no referees yelling stop. The fight ended when one guy couldn't continue. Legends of these secret fights spread like wildfire. Even mainstream champions like Chuck Norris were part of this evolution. Norris cross-trained with judo practitioners like Gene LeBell because a real fight doesn't follow tournament rules. The best fighters were becoming martial artists, not just karateka. This period was a pressure cooker. Traditionalists insisted the old ways were the only ways and called full contact brutish. A new generation wanted realism. All it needed was a leader to light the fuse. That leader was about to step forward. Enter Joe Louis. He was the establishment's golden boy. Now a former Marine who served in Okinawa, trained by respected masters, he dominated the tournament circuit. He was the undisputed king of point karate. But the champion was deeply unhappy. He grew more frustrated with the limitations of point sparring. He would describe it as a game of tag. He trained for combat, but he was being forced to compete in a sport that actively discouraged it. This internal conflict ate at him. His breaking point was a search for what he called the truth. He sought out Bruce Lee. The two became friends and training partners. Lee's Jeet Kune Do philosophy: absorb what is useful, discard what is useless, add what is your own. He studied Western boxing, footwork, head movement, how to throw real, powerful combinations. He built a new system designed for one thing: winning a real fight. This put him on a collision course with the entire karate world. He was openly questioning the foundations of the art that made him famous. The moment of truth came in 1970. A promoter named Lee Faulkner decided to take a massive gamble. He put together an event for the first ever U.S. Pro Team Karate Championships. At Joe Louis's urging, Faulkner made the main event radically different. Fighters would wear padded gloves and be allowed to hit with full force. The winner, a knockout or a judge's decision. This was the shot heard around the martial arts world. Traditional karate masters were horrified. They called it brutal, unrefined, and heretical. They predicted serious injuries and warned it would degrade the art into thuggery. Joe Louis was the star of the show. He pushed for this for years and now had to back up all his talk. He stepped into the ring as the embodiment of the new controversial philosophy. His opponent, Greg Baines, tough, respected. The martial arts world watched to see karate's power unleashed. The fight was explosive. Louis blended karate kicks with boxing handwork into a whirlwind of controlled aggression. He knocked Baines out in round 2 with a series of powerful, precise strikes. The knockout validated everything he'd preached. After that first groundbreaking victory, Joe Louis became the face of a new sport. He defended his Professional Karate Association World Championship title 10 times, dominating between 1974 and 1975. He was a terrifying combination of speed, power, and fight IQ. Hands like any pro boxer and kicks with blinding speed. Opponents just didn't know how to deal with him. He was the prototype for the modern kickboxer, years ahead of his time. Every time he fought, crowds grew, and the sport gained legitimacy. Two of his most famous rivalries were with Bill Superfoot Wallace and Mike Stone. When Louis defeated Mike Stone in a full contact bout, it was symbolic. Proof the new way worked. He wasn't just beating journeymen, he was taking on established legends and proving his point over and over. He became the charismatic face needed to build a sport around. His dominance gave kickboxing a sense of legitimacy and helped the fledgling sport grow. He carried the movement on his broad shoulders. The rise of Joe Louis and full contact fighting triggered a full-blown civil war within the karate community. Many old masters viewed what Louis did as a bastardization of their art. To them, karate was Budo, a way of life focused on self-perfection, discipline, respect, and avoidance of conflict. The idea of fighting for money in a ring with the goal of knocking someone unconscious was the antithesis of everything they believed. Dojo split. Students were forced to choose. Martial arts magazines became battlegrounds. Traditionalists accused full contact fighters of sloppy technique and abandoning core principles for wins. Innovators fired back. Tradition is useless if it can't be proven effective. Full contact was a lab to test techniques under pressure. It was a place to refine and validate techniques. Karate splintered. Traditional dojos focused on kata and self-defense. New school gyms focused on conditioning and full contact fighting. The debate Joe Louis started is still alive today in dojos and gyms worldwide. It forced everyone to re-examine their practice and sparked growth and innovation. The idea that you must test your style against a fully resisting opponent grew into the tree that is modern mixed martial arts. The first kickboxers were, in a sense, the first mixed martial artists of the modern era. Kicks of karate and the hands of Western boxing began to break down walls between styles. Coaches started taking what worked, teaching transitions and mixed techniques. Think about UFC 1 in 1993, the same question Joe Louis asked: which style is best? He cracked the door open by questioning single-style effectiveness. The UFC blew the door off its hinges. Louis and the first-generation kickboxers proved traditional karate was vulnerable to good boxing. The early UFCs then proved striking arts were vulnerable to elite grappling. This forced fighters to evolve, take down defense, submissions, and learning to punch and kick across disciplines. The well-rounded mixed martial artist is the spiritual descendant of Joe Louis. Every jab to low kick, every footwork to takedown sequence walks a path Louis helped blaze. He championed the idea no single style has all the answers. Joe Louis passed away in 2012, but the revolution he started is far from over. His legacy isn't just titles or a new sport, it's a fundamental debate about the soul of martial arts. On one side, traditional dojos preserve kata and budo. On the other, MMA schools carry Louis's approach. Traditionalists value discipline, humility, and character. They argue competition has diluted meaning. Fight gyms say the test is effectiveness. Pressure testing forges real skill. The traditionalist asks, but does it work? The sport fighter asks, is there more to it than winning? Louis inspired generations to seek challenges, cross-train, question, and never stop asking. He proved mastery doesn't come from blind following, but from questioning, testing, and forging your own. He shattered the pristine image of karate so it could be rebuilt stronger and more honest. He was a champion, a rebel, and a true martial arts visionary. Support our channel. Comment, like, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell and choose a video on your screen. We'll see you there.